Remember the Lunar Exploration missions in Gran Turismo 6? They were the weird ones where instead of driving a car on a track, you drove a rover on the moon. Sounds crazy? That's because it is crazy. But why should we limit ourselves to just the moon? What if we expanded Gran Turismo's reach to a third terrestrial body, Mars, the red planet? That's why today, we're going to imagine some Martian exploration missions for a future Gran Turismo game, because as the saying goes, science isn't about why, it's about why not. So first off, let's review the Lunar Exploration mode in Gran Turismo 6 for context and so we have a model to base our Martian exploration mode on. After you complete your National A license tests, you unlock the Lunar Exploration special event. There, you drive the NASA lunar roving vehicle on 3 missions around Hadley Rill on the lunar surface. The first one tackles one of the actual EVA routes taken on the Apollo 15 mission, specifically what appears to be part of the first EVA taken on the 31st of July 1971. The second and third missions, however, are both fictional routes. Mission 2 takes you downhill towards the base of St. George Crater, while Mission 3 is a shockingly hard coffee break-esque endeavor that has you knock down 30 cones in a smaller ring arena. Not even on the moon can you escape the horrors of the so-called coffee break. The fun, debatably, of these missions comes from the sheer absurdity of their existence in Gran Turismo first and foremost, but also due to the reduced gravity on the moon that allows rovers to go flying. There's even a trophy given out for making a jump longer than 3 seconds on the moon, a feat that can only be contested on Earth by the likes of Mark Webber. There's a lot to be discussed about the inclusion of missions like these, but this video isn't a critique, dear viewer. We're trying to go absolutely buck fucking wild with the concept of a second extraterrestrial driving game mode for Gran Turismo. And with this information in tow, we can begin building our new Martian exploration special event. Let's begin with one of the most important parts of our event when it comes to its inclusion in Gran Turismo. The vehicle will be driving on the surface of the red planet. It seems like a simple ask at first. We've already got vehicles on the surface of Mars. Take a look at the many autonomous rovers like Opportunity, Curiosity, and Perseverance that have already left tracks on Mars. It seems intuitive for us to be able to drive one of these babies in our event, but there's a glaring problem with doing so that would make our missions even more egregiously difficult. Let me just show you this video clip that I hope will explain it. Yep, these rovers are exceptionally slow. The Curiosity rover, for example, tops out at a blazing 0.09 kilometers per hour on a good day, but on average it's only expected to travel at around 0.03 kilometers per hour. This speed is great for keeping scientific equipment safe, but not so much for getting from point A to point B quickly, so they're out of the question for our vehicle choice. Plus, remember that these rovers are autonomously controlled with instructions from Earth, so unless you're keen with an input delay of several minutes, achieving true Gran Turismo level realism with these rovers simply wouldn't be feasible. But who says these vehicles have to exist IRL? Because Gran Turismo prides itself in its selection of concept cars that haven't yet made their way to production. And that's why my idea for a vehicle to be used in our Martian exploration missions is a manned Mars rover concept, one that's more similar in specs to the lunar roving vehicles seen in Lunar Exploration. What if we used NASA's space exploration vehicle concept, for instance? We already see a massive gain in top speed with a whopping 10 kilometers per hour to this vehicle's name, but that's still nearly 3 times slower than the LRV. While we could adjust our mission distances to account for this speed, I have an even better idea. NASA Vision Gran Turismo. We have Jordan and Nike Vision Gran Turismo cars teased, so why not have Kaz collaborate with NASA themselves to create a high-performance Mars rover concept specifically for use in this special event? For consistency's sake, we'll assume our NASA VGT has comparable specs to the LRV in Gran Turismo 6 with a top speed of around 32 kilometers per hour. And as for taking it outside the missions, put it on the Nürburgring, I don't fucking care. That'll give it 1 over compared to the LRV. Alright, so we've picked out a suitable vehicle for our event. Now let's talk about the main part of it, that being the selection of missions we'll put our player through. Of course, there will be slightly more gravity here on Mars, not as much as Earth, but a bit more compared to the moon. While this means no more cool flips, it may make running over rocks and terrain more forgiving. Regardless, I want to change things up a bit compared to the Lunar Exploration missions. Instead of having 2 point-to-point missions and a coffee break, we'll have 1 point-to-point, 1 coffee break, and 1 brand new mission type. For the first mission, the real life route, we'll be focusing on the route the Opportunity rover took, traveling from Eagle Crater to Endurance Crater in 2004. At approximately 700 meters in distance, it took Opportunity around 1 month to drive this route, but with our crewed rover concept, it'll take only a few minutes, which is more in line with the existing Lunar Exploration missions. This should offer quite a challenge, even if it is a simple route. Just like the Apollo 15 route on the moon, what should make it it interesting is the varied Martian terrain and the lower gravity. For our second mission, it's time for the coffee break. You know, I've been feeling a little devilish today, so I won't be making this another cone knockdown mission like the one in Lunar Exploration. No, I'm bringing it back to the very first coffee break in GT4 with a cone avoidance challenge. Get from point A to point B in the Mars rover without knocking any cones over. And we have the freedom to choose whatever location we please, so we can control the elevation a bit, which now gives me the absolutely diabolical idea of randomizing the cones in elevation every time. Combine that with the floatier handling on account of the reduced gravity, and we've got a delicious recipe for disaster. I can already imagine my own tears as I try for the third consecutive hour to gold this one coffee break. Then we've got the third mission. I mentioned earlier that we're going to have a new mission type, so here's a bit of a surprise. We've gotten so caught up with all this Mars stuff that we've forgotten the very essence of Gran Turismo as a series, the racing. So why not throw things even further into left field by having a Mars rover lap race, put a track on the Martian surface, get 5 to 7 other AI Mars rovers, and have them participate in the time-tested human tradition of being fast as fuck, boy. But why should we limit ourselves to just these 3 missions? Obviously, there's a whole slew of opportunities opened up by the unique conditions of Mars. Have missions where you brave the Martian terrain and do some rock crawling. Low gravity on Mars? Fuck it, long jump mission. Really, the only limits here are what can be accomplished in this environment and what Polyphony has the willpower to do. But I trust in them solely because of how peak a Mars mission would be. At this point, we don't even need Gran Turismo 8 to have track racing. Just turn it into Kerbal Space Program 2 because that's a game that doesn't have a sequel. And like, what other racing game series would have this? This game mode is 10 out of 10 game of the year material right here, and the only reason we don't have it now is because no other racing game would ever be able to match it. For the love of all that is holy, we gotta have our Mars missions now. Okay, real talk. We had our fun making these missions and learning a bit about astronomy along the way, but let's slow down and ask ourselves, should we even be doing all this? Because as fun as the idea of Mars missions in Gran Turismo may sound, there's still something that can take up valuable time and effort. In terms of the actual value of these missions, I do believe that while fun, the original Lunar Exploration missions were somewhat on the boring side. There's honestly not much gameplay to be had with 2 missions consisting solely of driving forward on slightly interesting terrain. That's why I tried to improve things with my Martian exploration missions by offering a larger variety of gameplay types that take advantage of Mars's planetary properties. Plus, there's the problem of development for this mode taking up precious resources for Polyphony. Given the current state of Gran Turismo, there's definitely things with these games that should be taken care of long before we get another funny special mission on a different terrestrial body. But Polyphony is a pretty big company with hordes of their own resources, so I wouldn't put it past them to be able to do both, but only if they're willing to do so though. I understand that this silly mission might not be much of a priority for them. But yeah, besides those issues, I really do think that these types of missions are a net positive for Gran Turismo. It goes far beyond the surface level of haha funny moon cargo brr. I mentioned in my previous video about Gran Turismo's fictional sponsors that this series' absurdity is what makes it what it is, and these spacey missions are yet another facet of it. Only in Gran Turismo could you have a special mission where you drive on the fucking moon or Mars, or have a Toyota pod race, or drive literally the first automobile ever made on the Nürburgring. At its core, Gran Turismo is a celebration of cars and driving, and who's to say that this shouldn't include the real weird stuff? I didn't even include this part in my initial draft of the script, but when I hopped on the emulator for the first time to record myself playing each Lunar Exploration mission, I found myself completely immersed in the atmosphere of these missions, which is ironic given that the moon has no atmosphere. But the music, the sound design, simply floating around in a low gravity environment, all these things combine to make something that feels uniquely surreal for a game like Gran Turismo. And with that experience in mind, I truly understood why this mode sticks out to so many Gran Turismo players. So Polyphony, if you ever need ideas like this for Gran Turismo 8, hop in my DMs, I've got plenty. Anyway, that's the video. We've learned a lot about space and comparatively nothing about proper game design, so thank you for watching to the end, and if you haven't yet been convinced by anything in this video, allow me to show you this awesome clip.
Oh shit!
Thank you for your time.